Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome. It is Thursday. Double check what's going on. Yeah, my audio is coming through. I don't know what's going on with the music distortion. I'll try to debug that. But hey, what's going on, everyone? Zooey, good to see you in chat. Hello, hello, hello. I am Ian Douglas. I'm the author of this website, techinterview.guide. You can put it in your browser just like that, and you get a whole bunch of free content. I'm here to help people get better at interviewing. It doesn't have to be tech related. I've been fielding more and more questions lately from people that are not in the tech industry or looking for a job in the tech industry, or they're not looking for a programmer type of job. And so yeah, I mean, I'm not going to change the site to just like interview.guide, but because tech interviewing is my specialty, but I am happy to help folks out. So thanks for dropping by. Zooey, how's your week going? You got a little over a month left before the new job, yeah? What kind of stuff are you doing to fill your time lately? Let me know in chat what's going on for you. I did say I was going to drink soda on the stream. All right, good thing that one's empty. Cool, cool. Let's see who else is hanging out with us today. We got Tech Dinosaur Printer or 3D Print Fan, Python Nate. Good to see all y'all. Appreciate all of you showing up at my lunchtime stream at work. Down in the text underneath my picture here, I've got another an alternate username that I would appreciate if you could give it a follow on Twitch as well. That would be a huge help. It's Ian the Postmanaut, and that's my work account. You don't have to come hang out at lunch unless you got time and you want to, come hang out at lunch and just drop a quick little chat, like say hi. That would be fantastic. I'd appreciate any extra support there. But mostly right now, I'm just looking for followers on that account. I need to get to 50. I need to get to affiliate status on there. I'm about halfway. I got about 24 followers. So yeah, you'll see some stuff show up in the stream chat over here saying like, please please follow my other account. Um, I don't ask for much on the stream. That's the only thing I really ask for is followers. So yeah, I appreciate any followers. Zooey says I just took a week trip to Cincinnati to watch the Super Bowl. What? That's cool to watch Super Bowl. Friends got home 2 days ago. Super Bowl. So I didn't watch it live. I watched the halftime show like Tuesday. Um, it was in LA, wasn't it? Where was the actual live event? I guess that I don't know. Like, was Super Bowl actually in Cincinnati, or were you just in Cincinnati to hang out with friends for a Super Bowl? Cool. Let's see. Aside from that, actually, Zooey, while you're there, let me know can you hear the background music and does it still sound distorted? It was in LA, but oh, Cincinnati played. That's right. Yeah, Cincinnati was in the. Yeah, it shows you how much I care about football, right? I mean, you've heard me relay the Yahoo story. Yeah, I don't give a rip about football, but halftime show was amazing. I really enjoyed that the halftime show. Yeah, so the intro music for some reason is clipping and distorting really badly, and it happened. I think it happened yesterday on my lunch stream, and I noticed it again today. And some of the other folks that kind of come and just passively listen on the stream, they also mentioned today too that they heard a bunch of distortion. So I'm gonna try and debug that once this stream is over. I may like shut off the stream and turn the stream back on and just see if I can figure out what's going on with the music. I'm not sure where it's clipping. I might have to try to debug that a little bit from an audio subprocessor kind of level because right now I'm using something called Virtual Wire on Windows, and it's basically taking the output and sort of putting it out like a fake speaker, and then it's capturing that input in OBS, and then it's supposed to be broadcasting it out, and it is broadcasting the audio, but somewhere along the line, uh, it's like really distorting, and there's a fizzing sound, and the music is slightly distorted. So it's still happening even with the background music, Zooey. If it is, I'm just gonna shut the music off because I don't want it to be like super distracting and annoying throughout the stream. So let me know if it's Well, actually, now it's not playing a song. Looks like it's in between songs, so give it a sec to start up a new song. I'm curious if it's always happening, or Zooey, did you just notice it on the intro? Because I heard it on the intro as well. It's not annoying, but it's noticeable. All right, I'm gonna shut it off then. Cool. Appreciate the heads up on that, everyone. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that after this stream. So no background music for today. Um, cool. Let me just drop in on LinkedIn. Just drop a quick comment in here. So LinkedIn is acting up on me again, where it's not letting me post a comment to say post a comment if you got questions. I don't know why. It's my own stream. It's my own stream and it won't let me comment on my stream. It just comes up and it says failed to post a comment. Oh, now it worked. Okay. So I got that on LinkedIn. I got Facebook running. No comments there yet. But I will watch those periodically throughout the evening. So if you do have questions on LinkedIn or Facebook, please feel free to drop those in those comments. If you want your comment or question to show up in this panel over here on the output, you will have to come over to Twitch to do that. And making a Twitch account is free. And if you've got Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my channel for free and spend Jeff Bezos's money or whoever is running Amazon these days. But yeah, hello to all the viewers. Hope you're all doing well. So it's Thursday. It's like mid-February. Can't believe February is half over already. I'm ending my third week on the job and it has been busy. Trying to keep up with things and trying to prioritize tasks. I got my first blog post almost finished up, and I got let's see, I'm going to be on the Postman webinar, or like they stream Thursday mornings. So I'm going to be on that one next Thursday morning, and then I also stream at lunch. So I stream at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. That's when I stream for work. And I'm doing that Monday to Friday right now. Once I finish this 30 days of Postman thing, I may cut it back and do like a couple of times a week, depending on workload. But I've been having a lot of fun with this. I'm calling it my learning in public. But next Thursday, I'm going to be on the main Postman Twitch account, and I'm going to be on the receiving end of what they call a blindfold challenge, where I have no idea what they're going to throw at me. It's either going to be an API that I've never used or some part of Postman that I haven't used, and I'm going to get like some coaching and walk through that. I think it's going to be an hour and a half long. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be humbling, and I'm excited. I work with some really great people, and I trust them entirely that we're going to have fun at the very least. So if you've got some free time, drop by next Thursday. That account is Get Postman. I'll drop it in chat here. If you've got some time, come by and say hi. Get Postman. And then at the end of March, I'm going to be running a blindfold challenge for somebody. The middle of March, I'm running a webinar for a program that we call Space Camp. And I'm going to be doing a session on testing with a fantastic person named Carson, who was on the live stream today with Sean. You can go check that one out on the Get Postman account. Sean was basically hooking up the Strava API and seeing some really cool visualizations. So Carson was walking him through how to do like almost the GitHub checkerboard kind of visualization on like how hard his workouts were on Strava. So it was a really cool episode. It's about an hour and a half long, but they go into some really cool detail on like going through the OAuth, going through the OAuth process and getting all that wired up, and then wiring up the visualization for like how do you go get the data, how do you parse out that data, and then how do you use this visualization library. So that was pretty fun. And then I'm going to be doing another webinar in May. I'm already talking to some clients. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a good time so far. But yeah, if you can give my Ian the Postman account, it's down here underneath my face in the interface. If you do that, that'd be great. Got a couple of folks hanging out on LinkedIn. Coding with a blindfold. So a comment I had on LinkedIn is coding with a blindfold would be fun. So I'm not literally going to be blindfolded. That would actually make it a little tricky to code and understand what's going on, but it would absolutely, that would be a really interesting accessibility challenge for sure. Like how well can you get by on something if you're visually impaired? And I actually saw something recently. It's not related to the Q&A that we'll get into tonight. But I did see a post from someone that said, I have a coworker who's visually impaired and they can't drag and drop things like project cards on GitHub projects or Trello. Like they can't see it to actually click on it and move it over. Like, how do you set that kind of stuff up for somebody who's visually impaired? And it actually raised a really good question around the idea of like hotkeys and things like that, because they actually use a Braille keyboard and they've got some sort of mechanism to like play back the words on the screen or something on the Braille interface that they use. And apparently they're a very good programmer. They just can't visually like drag and drop things with this interface that they use. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Midnight Simon hanging out in chat. My goodness, blessing us with your presence, Simon. Thanks for dropping by, man. I really appreciate hanging out on your Discord and chatting with folks over there. Um, Midnight Simon, how's that Fang job working out? How's life at Google these days? You've been there 3 months now? You got that job in December, right? Did you start in December? Or did you start in January? I can't remember. But you've been there for a little bit now. How's it going? It's going good. Awesome. That's great, man. It was a lot of fun following Simon's journey. So go give Midnight Simon a follow. Simon, are you going to be streaming again sometime? You were kind of hinting maybe March-ish timeline. I think the last I heard on the stream, as you were kind of like wrapping up your stream, that maybe March, maybe April, get back into streaming from time to time. Yeah, so if you're watching this, go give Midnight Simon a follow. Really great guy. He was basically grinding leak code like mad to get this job at Google. Simon, I'd love to have you on the stream here sometime and just hear about your journey and have other folks like hear about like what that process was for you, what your interviews were like, and how you juggled all of that and negotiations and anything like that. So yeah, if you ever want to be on the stream, I'll reach out on Discord and see if we can coordinate a time. That would be fantastic to have you on the stream here. I think it's a really good journey to hear like how somebody prepared to get into a Fang job. It was a lot of work. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Simon went through a lot of work to get that job. Um, RC Maniac has but arrived. Well, in that case, blinky lights for RC Maniac. Appreciate RC Maniac hanging out as well. RC Maniac's like hanging out everywhere these days. Really appreciate you dropping by my lunch stream as well. Yeah, it was a tough grind. Totally worth it. Well, yeah, absolutely. Once you get that Fang job, of course it's worth it at that point. Another thing that you'll see pop up in the chat window over here, I am looking for some volunteers to help out with some of my YouTube videos. If anybody's got spare time and you're bored, if you could go back and like watch some of the Q&A sessions and just write out some timestamps of like this is when the next question started. You don't even have to say what the question was, but just mark what those timestamps were and like put it in a YouTube comment or something for me. That would be a huge help. I've had a lot of people ask for timestamps, and I want to like get that into the description with the questions so I can get some better SEO on those videos. I still want to go through and like split them up for the podcast because I haven't done any of the podcast audio since like December. They ran out in December, as well as the shorter YouTube clips from these larger episodes. And so I do want to get back in and find those. It's just really time consuming to go back after the fact and like find the start and end times on the videos, things like that. So if anybody's bored and you got some time and you want to help me out, I would love any sort of help on that. Simon says Google is easy work compared to doctors and lawyers. That's awesome. Archimania came back from barbecue. Sweet. What kind of barbecue did you have? Zui says, I'm amazed you went through that grind. I struggled with trying to get through beginner challenges. Yeah, for sure. It's a tough grind. I'm not gonna lie. Like interviewing at Amazon was really intimidating for me. And I'm a senior dev and I've been doing this a long time, and it was intimidating for sure. Brisket, pulled pork, ribs. Nice. I'll have to hit you up and share my rib seasoning dry rub recipe. I dry rub ribs and then I sous vide them and then I grill them just to get that little char on there and like slather it with sauce as I'm grilling. Comes out really nice. Just saying. But I'm not good at cooking brisket, so I might have to get some tips on brisket at some point. I've got like a 10-pound brisket sitting in my freezer. I'm just scared to cook. Anyway, we're not here for a cooking show, but but we're here for some Q&A. So if you have questions about interview prep, career prep, anything like that, feel free to drop it in chat. Drop it on LinkedIn, drop it on Facebook. If you are watching on Facebook and LinkedIn and you want to see your comment over here, you will need to come over to Twitch. But otherwise, drop your comments on those platforms. I will be watching those periodically throughout the evening, and I will answer those live on the stream. Same if I see questions pop up here in chat as well, I will absolutely pay attention to those. Um, Other than that, I've got a handful of backlogged questions that I want to get through. I've put them on my Discord channel. You can do bang Discord in the chat to get those details if you want to come join us on Discord. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. I would appreciate any subscriptions over there just to get notified when I put these full sessions up. And then, like I said, I'm going to slowly be working at the time stamping and like slicing these up for the playlists and so on, because I know I'm actually getting way more views on YouTube than I do on Twitch, even after the fact. Um, so yeah, I wanna do better at YouTube. I want to do YouTube better for sure. Malbury, first time chat, good to see you. Yeah, just go ahead and ask a question here on chat, just like you did. Yeah, just drop a question in for sure. Midnight Simon asks in chat, what are some good questions and things to ask my mentor in our weekly one-on-one? That's a great question. I would say in a one-on-one session, you should be setting the agenda. So whether it's a mentor or manager, if you are on the receiving end of that one-on-one, you should be bringing the agenda. You should be bringing, hey, I want to discuss the following topics. So at my job, I've got I ordered an orange notebook for Postman because that's kind of their company color. And when I go to my one-on-one with my manager, I bring, I mean, in this case, it was like half a page of notes. I can't actually show it to you because I'm under NDA for some stuff. Um, but I bring anywhere from half a page, of notebook stuff to like a full page of notes, and it's a decent size. And so I'll fill up like bullet points or like a full page of bullet points of stuff that I want to talk about. And so I keep track of that on like a future page of like, hey, next one-on-one on Tuesday, I want to talk about the following things, and I just start writing them out as I think of them. And I have that one-on-one meeting every week. Now, we don't have to have that one-on-one meeting every week, but you should be setting that agenda. You should be bringing discussion points and things you want to talk about. So good questions would be, how's my progress so far? Are you happy with my progress? Are you happy with my onboarding and the work that I'm producing? Let them know that you're open to feedback. I think that that's one of the biggest and hardest challenges in the workplace. And this is something I just told my manager in my one-on-one this week. I'm like, hey, if you ever have feedback, you don't have to hold back. You don't have to sugarcoat it. I prefer it privately. But if you have feedback for me, bring it. I've been around the industry a long time. I've heard a lot of things. I've got thick skin. I'm a big boy. I can take it. Um, if you've got any kind of feedback, good or bad, I prefer it privately, and you can just lay it out. Like just be honest, be straight with me. Don't beat around the bush. Just and she's like, oh wow, that's awesome to know, because some people have a really hard time getting feedback or taking feedback. And so I wanted I wanted my manager to know like, hey, you can give me feedback at any point. And so the kinds of things that I bring into that meeting are topics like, hey, this task that I'm working on, I've got a question about this, or I'm stuck on this, or can you give me some direction on that? And so asking for help, that's one thing you can bring. Um, you can bring questions like, how's my progress? Are you happy with my progress? Are there things that you would like to see me do differently? Are there additional tasks I can take on? Or, hey, I find like the amount of work that I'm taking on Monday, I'm usually wrapping up by like Thursday afternoon. Should I take on more? Should I be careful with my time? Would you like to see me stretch and do a little bit more work? Are there other responsibilities that I can start working ahead on towards like not necessarily promotion, but like, are there other things that I can help out with? At previous jobs, when I would do a one-on-one with my manager, I would always end that meeting with, what can I help you with? Not that I was trying to like do manager stuff because I wanted a manager role, but it was just like, is there some way that I can help you? Like, what can I do to help you with your job? Not to like offload their tasks, but like, how can I make your job easier? Is really the theme of that question. You can also have discussion about your teammates and just say like, hey, by the way, I've been doing some pair programming with Simon lately. Simon's been amazing. They've been really helpful on this. Like, let your boss know that. Like, if you're or if it's with a manager, Let them know about coworkers that you're getting along well with, that you're working well with, that you've got that good collaboration and that good rapport. Let them know because they may not see it, especially in remote environments. They're not going to know who's working well together, who's helpful, and who's not helpful. And so I think sharing that kind of stuff with management is really, really key. Now, if it's a mentor, then you can bring questions um, depending on whether the mentor is internal or external. And you will always hear me advocate that you should have an internal mentor within your company. So somebody within the company who knows a lot, they've got a lot of domain knowledge that they can share with you. But you also need a mentor outside of the company. This is especially important if you're new in the industry. You don't want a mentor only within your company. Otherwise, you end up putting kind of blinders on a little bit where you don't necessarily see other ways of doing things. And the way that you get told to do things, you kind of believe like that's the only way to do it. And you have to be careful about that in the tech industry. You have to be really careful about that. And I would say having a mentor outside of the company. Now, you do have to be careful with sharing secrets and whatever. You don't want to disclose anything that you're under contract to keep secret. But um, you can say like, hey, I'm facing this problem at work. I'm trying to design, some multi-tenant kind of thing, and I'm having a problem in Node and Express building an endpoint that does such and such. Have you ever done something like that? Like, can you give me some high-level advice? And it has to be high-level advice because you're not going to be able to share like really low-level detail because it's going to be privileged information within the company. But I think it's important that you get external advice at a high level just to know that there's more than one way to do it. And it may end up working out that they're just validating that the way you're doing it is actually the right way to do it. But that's really good perspective too. You have to have multiple kinds of perspectives. So those would be the kinds of things that I would bring to a meeting like that, any kind of one-on-one. There is a company that I mentored in the Toronto area in Canada. They were originally called Soapbox, and they've changed their name to Hypercontext. And their logo, coincidentally enough, is actually an astronaut helmet. So that's on the back of my Postman. This is actually the hypertext logo. But I put it on my Postman notebook because it was an astronaut helmet. But go check out Hypercontext, exactly as it sounds, Hypercontext. I think it's .com. They make a tool now just for one-on-ones, and they've got all kinds of free content that you can subscribe to. There's like newsletters that you can get where they'll bring up like, hey, here's like a batch of questions that you can ask in a one-on-one. So go check that out. I highly recommend them and their team. Brennan and Graham have done a fantastic job kind of building up that company. I met them at Google I/O back in like 2011, 2012, something like that. And I mentored them for a couple of years and they took off and ran and they're like doing great things now. So all right, cool. We got a question from Malberry in chat, so just give me a sec to kind of read through it. Enjoy my videos, appreciate it. Thanks. Question. Let me scroll back up. When I'm doing leak code questions and I get a question wrong, I find I spend more time trying to find out my mistakes versus studying the actual solution. By the time 30 minutes pass, I still haven't discovered my mistake. I haven't even started looking at the solution. Do you have any advice for studying your mistakes or studying efficiently? Or if I should just prioritize understanding the solution instead? That's a great question. And I think Simon could probably chime in on chat and give a bit of perspective too, because Simon's done like hundreds and hundreds of leak code problems. I think when it comes to leak code, if you're having a problem solving it, I would examine the process that you're trying to follow. And so generally I think about the like a process as if I would do this in a real interview. I kind of restate the problem. Like if I had to reword the problem in my own words, how would I explain the problem to someone else? And then what questions do I have? Like after I read through it and I look through the examples, do I have any questions? And I would just write those down because I think that's good practice for a real interview. Not that you would write down the questions, but you would actually ask some questions. And then after you write out those questions, I would go back and read through the prompt again, see whether those questions get answered or not. And if they don't, hang on to them until after. And then start writing out some pseudocode, just some really high level pseudocode. And I do have it on my to do list to make a video specifically about my approach to writing pseudocode. I do cover that a little bit in my leak code videos on the YouTube channel. I'll post that link in chat. But I think that the strategy of pseudocode can be a little tricky as far as like how do I break this problem down and just write that out in kind of those vague terms. But I think it's a really important step to try to imagine like if I had to explain to somebody who's not a programmer, how to do this kind of work, like what would I tell them to do? I would loop over this list of numbers and calculate blah, blah, blah. How do you break that down step by step? Um, so if like going back to Melbury's question, if I don't get the answer right, you spend more time trying to figure out your mistake versus actually studying the solution. I think you kind of need to work out both. Like if you look at other people's answers, because there's not just going to be one way to do it. That's a key thing to remember with LeetCode. There's going to be more than one way to solve these problems. Now, there's typically going to be like a better or best solution when it comes to like time complexity or space complexity. It's like how quickly the algorithm can do its work and how much memory it uses to actually solve the problem. So there are going to be better solutions, but there should be multiple solutions to actually solve it. And so when you talk about like, I'm having a problem finding my mistakes versus studying the solution, there are going to be multiple answers. And so one thing that I recommend in one of my YouTube videos is actually go look at other people's answers. Go write out pseudocode for how you think they've actually solved it. And then go back and compare that to the pseudocode that you wrote. And so if you try to tackle a problem and you've written out your own pseudocode and you don't solve it, if you've got your pseudocode handy, go look at other people's answers, go write out pseudocode for what you think they're doing or how they've solved it, and then compare the pseudocode, compare it to yours, compare them to each other. And I recommend in that YouTube video, like go find 4 or 5 answers and go write out pseudocode and then compare that pseudocode. Strip away things that are kind of uncommon, and then you can kind of start to see these overall strategies of like, oh, if it's a backtracking problem, I do it this way, or if it's a heap problem, I need to keep these kinds of things in mind. And then as you see those strategies kind of work up to the top, then you'll start to kind of figure out, okay, well, based on the pseudocode I wrote, this is where I started going wrong. When you look at other people's answers as well, you might see somebody who actually had like 90% of your pseudocode, like when you look at the pseudocode, and you realize like, oh, they actually approached the problem the same way I did, and this was the 1 or 2 things that they did differently, and their solution works where mine didn't. Then go examine that, and I think you can study that in a little more detail at that point. I think that that'll probably help you out. So it's going to be a combination of both. So it's not like, do I find my mistake or do I look at other answers? I think it's a bit of both. I think as you look at other answers, it'll help um, sort of expose your mistake and like where you went wrong in trying to solve the problem. So that would be my advice on that. Hopefully that helps. If you've got follow-up questions on that, please drop that in chat as well. And if others have worked on LeetCode and you've got perspective on that, feel free to drop that in chat as well. And I'll try to read that back for audio sake. But yeah, if anyone else has other input on LeetCode for Malbury's question, please feel free to share that perspective in chat as well. Bible Climb member, good to see you in chat. Ask a question: how do you get an organization out of a web of direct messages in Slack when people don't like using channels? Slack reports on the ratio, and we're 93% direct message. So to unpack this question a little bit, Viable Clan member is asking, or is basically saying, like, within our company, 93% of our Slack communication is in private chat. They would prefer more conversation to happen in public. And I think that public sharing of knowledge is a very key thing. That's like the tagline of my channel here is like, share what you know and we all win. If everything is done in private channels, then other people are missing out. And I think that there needs to be some encouragement of, hey, can we move this conversation into this public channel? Because I think it's going to be beneficial for others to see this. And you could literally just ask that and just say like, hey, I would prefer this conversation to be public, if that's okay with you. Some people are like, I prefer it to be private. At which point you can say, okay, I'm going to take this conversation, I'm going to recap it, I'm going to strip your name off of it. Like I'm just going to highlight and copy and paste this, but I'm going to take your name out of it, and share that publicly, and say I'm going to repost, bits of this conversation in this other channel because I think it's going to be helpful for other people to see. And I think as you start to do that, I think it'll start to build the momentum on others of like, oh, look at these folks on the team. They're willing to chat about this stuff in public. I think you'll start to see more people kind of bring their conversation over into public channels as well. But there is something nice about having direct messages. That's why there is a way to sort of send secret messages to one another, or not secret, but like private messages. There is benefit and safety in that. And so you need to respect the fact that not everybody wants everything to be public, especially if they're asking a question they feel uncomfortable asking publicly. They're maybe reaching out over direct message on purpose because they don't want to ask a question publicly with their name and like, oh, I don't want to look like an idiot if I ask this question. It's probably been difficult enough for them to reach out to you privately to say like, hey, I've got a question. But I think if you say like, hey, can I anonymize this and like rephrase it a little bit and post it in this other channel? I'm going to put the answer in this other channel because I think that it's going to be helpful for others on the team to kind of see the answer or hear about this conversation that has taken place. And I think as long as you can, even within the construct of that conversation, you can say, this is how I'm going to rephrase it. Does this look okay to you? I'm going to make sure that your name's kept out of it. If anybody asks, I'm not going to tell them, and just say this needs to be public. We need to share this more publicly on the team. And I think that you'll start to kind of build up your own culture at that point within your team of we're going to have a culture of public conversation, especially for sharing information and sharing knowledge like this, because it's an important part of being on the team. And I think that it's a really important thing, especially in development. You can't silo this information. You can't hoard this information. Some people do that thinking it's job security, and it's actually the opposite. Um, as a manager, I would let people go more freely, more willingly. I would dismiss people from the team if I knew that they were hoarding knowledge and not willing to share that knowledge with other people. And that sounds a little extreme, but I mean, that's kind of the truth of it. I mean, working on these development teams, we need to work together. We need to collaborate. That's why we use tools like Slack and Discord and whatever else to have these conversations. But that means that we have to use them. We have to use those channels as best we can. RC Maniac was following up in chat and just asking for clarification. Like, are you asking how to get a company to not direct message so everybody would use channels instead? Um, and Viable Clan member followed him and said, yeah, it feels like a saving face thing. So yeah, I think it kind of touched on the theme of what I said. Not everybody feels comfortable asking questions in public, and I think that that's okay. But I think if you just turn around immediately and say, hey, I'd like this to be in a public channel. Can I rephrase the question? Just say, hey, someone DM'd me a question that said blah blah blah. Very similar to what I do here on the stream. Like if you DM me a question, I'm not going to be like, oh, check out this message that Viable Clan whispered to me. I'm not going to put your name on it. If you send me a direct message on Twitter, on LinkedIn, or on Twitch, if you whisper something to me on Twitch, I'm not going to share your name. It's a safety thing, and people are more likely to ask questions when they know it's safe. And so I may rephrase the question a little bit. And that's why in the Discord channel, I've actually made a whole channel called Anonymous Questions. So if you send me a message, even on Discord, I'm going to rephrase it and I'm going to post it in that channel so other people can see it too. If you want to have conversation about that on Discord, you absolutely can. I'm going to answer some of those on the stream tonight as well. Harpender, good to see you in chat. I haven't seen you in a little bit. Give you some blinky lights and some applause. Thanks for stopping by. Harpender says, thanks for the resume feedback and the info from the stream and techinterview.guide. You got your first offer with more interviews rolling on. Sweet. That's awesome. So make sure that the other interviews know that you have an offer in hand. Use those three words, offer in hand. Those are the three most powerful words right now. That's basically what I did to like get a whole bunch of things rolling. I had a verbal offer for some curriculum development, and I used that to start pushing some other people on like, hey, I've got a verbal offer. Like, can we move this along? And then I started getting written offers. And then I got to go to the other companies and be like, now I have them in writing. I have written offers. And that turned into like a total of 6 offers. 5 of them were written, one was verbal, but I had half a dozen offers at the end of it all. So very, very powerful words, offer in hand. So yeah, that's fantastic. That's great. Um, I won't ask where you're interviewing or where the offer is or details about the offer, but I'm excited for you. I think that's fantastic. Good for you. Just having a look through chat here. Heartbender has a question in chat here. Says, I have a question. How do I research the offer, like salary and benefits? How do I make sure what I'm being offered is fair? That's a fantastic question. Every company is going to be a little bit different as far as what they call the compensation package, the total compensation package. It's going to include things like salary, benefits, maybe equity, maybe perks, and other benefits and so on. And so they should be able to provide you with some information up front. So when I was getting offers from companies, the first thing that I would ask them for is, can you send me your benefits plan package as far as who the carriers are, what my share of the cost is, so that I could get an idea of like what is my out of pocket going to be like per paycheck kind of thing. I can kind of guess like what my tax rate is and things like that, but I would always ask them like I need all the details in the offer. Like don't just tell me we're going to pay you this salary because the compensation package is way more than that. The offer letter, if it includes equity, they should be able to verbally, at a minimum, tell you the strike price of those options within the company. And so you'll want to make sure that you get that strike price so that you can kind of figure out the value to the company of their equity. If it's a public company or if they're about to go public, the options will probably be reserved stock units or RSUs instead of ISOs for incentive stock option. Those have different tax implications, and so you'll need to probably consult a like a tax, not a tax attorney, it would be like a tax preparation kind of person, and just say like, hey, here's like my last couple of years of taxes with this job, with this equity, like what should I be setting aside for taxes and things like that, and get some advice around taxes. They'll need to look over your tax history and figure out like, hey, you might get hit with alternative minimum tax if you're in the United States. If you buy these shares, given the strike price and given the valuation of the company and what they're projecting the value to be, blah blah blah. They should be able to tell you what the strike price is, maybe the current valuation of the company and the projected growth over the next year or two. Every company that I got offers with, I asked those questions and they were all able to provide that to me. As far as whether the offer is fair, like the total offer, you always want to negotiate your salary up no matter what. You want more salary, you want more cash in the bank. Options are worthless until there's an exit. Like, I got your box of options right here. Here's your box of options. I'll even put the brand name on camera. Here's your box of options right there. It's literally worth nothing until there's an exit. There's an acquisition or they go public or something like that. That the stock options are effectively worthless to you. To the company, they have value. So you have to be careful. You don't want to give the company the impression that you think they're worthless. And so you don't want to go back and be like, forget equity, forget this equity. This equity is garbage. It's like, this is nothing. You don't want to give them that impression. You want to say, cool, I appreciate the equity. I appreciate the value that you place on this. But you can factor in the value of that equity based on the strike price and the quantity of shares that they are granting you. So using round numbers, if they give you 10,000 options and the strike price is $1, to them it's worth $10,000. You have to stay 4 years and you have to pay them that $10,000. But if the value goes up to $10 each, that's $100,000. You pay them 10,000, you can then turn around and sell them for 100,000. You make $90,000 profit minus tax. And so it can be very lucrative. But if you factor in that you have to stay all 4 years and then whatever profit you make, you divide by four or however long you stayed. Like, so if you stay for 2 years and you buy like half of those, you have like $5,000 worth, and later they're worth, say, 50,000. So you make $45,000 profit. Divide that by two because you stayed for 2 years. And so on top of your salary, those stock options effectively gave you an extra $22,000 a year. So I think of like incentive stock options. I think of them as like extra paycheck that you're maybe going to get in the future later, maybe like a bonus paycheck. But I don't treat it as like this is actual income. If it's a public company and they're RSUs, I would treat it as actual income because those are immediately converted into real shares that you can sell on the stock market. And I'm sure Simon could probably share some perspective on that with working at Fang and working at big companies and stuff like that. I'm sure Simon's done a ton of research into RSUs and taxing and all that kind of stuff. RC Maniac mentions in chat levels.fyi. That is a good website. Not every company is going to be on there though. And so if it's, and I would be careful too, because levels.fyi is going to be a lot of the big FANG companies and the big Bay Area companies, like the top 100 companies in tech. And not every company can compete with those salaries. And so to go back to the company and be like, hey, you offered me, 90K for this first job, but I see entry level job at Google is like 150. Like, why aren't you paying me 150? The company's going to be like, we can't afford 150. And if you're going to push for 150, like we'll just take back the offer. Like if you're going to negotiate, you have to do it respectfully. And so there is an importance that you need to place on knowing your value in the market and the skills that you bring. And you have to understand the background that you bring and how you're making the team better. So when you're negotiating, excuse me, if you say, hey, I appreciate the offer, at I'm just going to use 90K and say, based on my background, based on my experience, based on what I'm bringing to the team, and looking at the market right now, I believe my skills are worth, you know, between like 100 and 110K. What can we do to like move that? You want to make it sound like it's a cooperative thing. What can we do? You want to use we on that language. You don't want to just say I want more money. You need to explain why you deserve that money. Um, even if the deserving is just like, hey, what you've offered is below market rate. When I tried to negotiate with the offers that I had back in January, um, there were two companies where I basically went back to them and said like, one of them I went back and I was just really upfront with them. I'm like, I appreciate the offer and I'm excited about the company. I'm excited about the position, but what you've offered isn't even market rate for what I do. And the amount of experience that I'm bringing to the team, like you're not even close to market rate. And so they came up to like the bottom of the range of market rate. And I'm like, okay, I'll let you know. And then I started getting other offers that were much higher than that, like 20, 30, 40, 50K higher than what they raised their offer to. And I'm like, can't do it. I can't like I like your position. I like the company. It's a small company. Their stock price was a little high for their stock options. And they weren't offering very much as far as equity goes. And so the salary was low, the equity was low, and I'm like, I'm not going to take your offer. And they're like, okay. I went to another company and said, hey, your offer was very generous. I appreciate it. All of the other offers I got were slightly higher. I would like to, at least make as much as some of these other offers. And they came back and they said, we can't match the salary. We just can't. We can give you a lot more equity. And they did. They gave me like 40% more equity. And I'm like, yes, please. I'll take more equity. Um, and so we worked out some negotiation around that, but they couldn't move on salary. And again, salary is the most important thing. You never want to say like, hey, can I give you back some salary and get more equity? You never want to do that. You don't want to give away real dollars in the bank for monopoly dollars maybe later, where your box of Kleenex is actually going to be worth, $1 million someday down the road. So you do want to be careful about that. But yeah, always negotiate on the salary. But you do have to know like what are developers in your area making right now with your amount of skill and your kind of background. Now, if you don't know anybody in your area with your particular set of skills. Now I've got Liam Neeson stuck in my head. Every time I talk about particular skills and background, I always get Liam Neeson stuck in my head. If you don't know like anybody in your network that has that set of skills, I got to go in my head again. Um, then that's where networking with the company would be really beneficial. Try to find another entry level dev or like a peer level developer at the company. So if you're going in at a junior level, find another junior dev and say like, hey, can you share your compensation package? I want to negotiate. This is what they've offered. I want to make sure that I'm being competitive and so on. Now, people that join a company, they'll come in at one point, and then with inflation and things going on, and how people negotiate, new people coming in may get a little bit higher. And so if you reach out to a junior dev and say, hey, they offered me 90, I'd like to make 100. What do you think? And they'd be like, they're only paying me 80. Well, that gives them some leverage. They can go back and be like, hey, new person's getting 90. I've been here for like 6 months. Like, shouldn't I be making 90? And yeah, they should. So that's on the company though. That's not on you. But I think reaching out to others in your network and say like, hey, what what am I worth? Knowing what you're worth, and then going back to the company and negotiating that way, I think would be a big help. So hopefully that'll help answer that question a little bit. Um, Follow up from Heartbender. The recruiter told me the offer is lower than market, but after 90 days, they'll do a performance review and they'll change it. I didn't like that. It seems shady. So some companies are using that 90-day window as a probationary period, and they say like, hey, let's just try this out for 90 days. And if it works out, then we bring you on full time. And so it'll be what they call contract to hire. And so for 90 days, you are a contractor and you get paid as like a 1099 contractor. They may pay your taxes, but you may or may not get benefits, and they can basically terminate you at any time. The downside to that approach, though, is that a lot of states in the United States are what we call at will employment states, which means you can leave at any time with no notice and they can terminate you at any time with no notice. So why do the 90-day probationary period? That seems silly. Um, so, I mean, it does depend on where you live and where they're headquartered, things like that. But I think using that 90-day contract to hire thing, it's saving them a little bit of money from a business perspective. Like I'll be transparent about that. From a business perspective, it's saving them a lot of money just to see whether it's going to work out or not. Now, the fact that they're willing to give you a raise at the end of that to kind of make up for it, I wouldn't say it's shady, but yeah, it doesn't really sit well with me either. I would just say like, hey, I'm willing to do like a 90-day, contract to hire or, 90-day probationary period. But if I'm doing the same work 90 days later that I'm doing now, like why wouldn't I be paid the same amount now as I would be in 90 days? One of the job offers I got in January, they made me an offer. It came in a little bit low. And while, like, between sending me the offer and me calling them to negotiate a little bit, I saw that they posted a senior level role. And so I contacted them and said, like, hey, like, the title you gave me is not a senior title. Do I qualify for the senior title? And if so, does that have a bump in pay? And they came back and said, yes, you qualify for it, but there will be no additional bump in pay. But if we bring you in at the non-senior level, then in a year, when we raise you to that senior level, you will get a raise. And because you'll have been at the company for a year, you get an additional like anniversary raise. And I'm like, so you want me to do senior level work, but you're not going to pay me as a senior dev. And they told me on the phone, it's like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm not taking your job offer. Like, why would you expect senior level work, not give me the senior title? And they're like, well, we'll give you the title, we just can't give you the extra money. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense either because you just told me that there's extra money with the senior title. And so, yeah, it just, I found out after the fact that they had already brought me in at the maximum of their salary band, but that was after the fact. Like they didn't explain that to me on the phone. I found that out from someone else later. It's like, get your ducks in a row when you're getting a candidate on the phone to talk to them about that kind of stuff. So if the recruiter tells you that it's below market rate, I would negotiate to market rate. Just say, if I'm coming in, I want to be paid market rate. And the fact that you've acknowledged that this is coming in at a lower rate just to work out 90 days and then convert me to like a regular employee at that point and give me a raise doesn't sit well with me. I would like to be paid the same amount of money for that 90 days. Like if it's a contract to hire and you can terminate me anyway, just pay me that amount of money. Um, if you want, Heartbender, contact me offline. Like connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter or something. Like let's chat about this, and I'll help you word it and phrase it to go talk to them about that. Because I think it's not that it's shady. It's just they're not treating you well on that offer, and I would negotiate on that before going too much farther with them. And I'll help you with the wording on that if you want to contact me offline. All right, let me get caught up on chat here a little bit. I feel like I missed another question somewhere along the way. Zooey checked Glassdoor for that company position. It was lower than I was offered. Uh, so viable clan member asked in chat, are options also called ordinary shares? So stock options are what we call incentive stock options or ISOs. They are not actual shares in the company. You have the option, that's the name of them. You have the option to actually buy the shares, and they call that exercising the option. By exercising the option, you are investing your money in the company and they give you shares. So, and they will be what they call common shares at that point. As a regular employee, you're not going to get the preferred stock. Preferred stock are like the first ones that get to cash out. If the company goes bankrupt or if there's like an acquisition or something, the preferred stockholders always get taken care of before the common stockholders or before the people who hold common stock. Not that you're like common folk. Didn't mean to word it that way. Um, Hypervisor asked in chat, do you think a contract position is worth going for? If it gets you in the door, yeah, I think it'd be fine. I've done contract work. If you can afford to pay for your own benefits and things like that, it can be worth it. Keep in mind that as a contractor, you typically don't get time off. And so I have seen people raise their rate a tiny bit to basically give them a bit of extra financial buffer to take some time off. While I was a contractor, my wife decided she wanted to go on a trip, and I was like, calculating in the cost of the trip and like how much we were spending to go on the trip, plus taking the week and a half off to go on the trip. It was going to cost us a couple of $1,000s out of pocket, like at the end of the day, because I was going to be losing money on like not having that income. As a freelancer, you don't get paid time off, you don't get PTO. While I was on the trip, um, I was going to see a comedy show, and I just sat down at a nickel slot machine and I won like $3,200, which more than paid for what I would have otherwise made in income. So in the end, it worked out. But then I got taxed on that, lottery winnings and whatever. But it was still interesting to sit down at a nickel slot machine, put in a $20 bill, and all the things go off, and it like starts counting up, and you're like, okay, I won like a lot of nickels. And then they come out and they're like, yeah, that's worth like $3,200. I'm like, what? So they're like counting out $100 bills, and I'm like feeling all self-conscious going to this comedy show with like a wad of $100 bills in my pocket. Um, but it was it was one way to kind of offset the expense. So get a contract role. Yeah, I think getting a contract role is totally okay. Um, there are certain things that you want to set up. You want to set up like a limited liability company or incorporation. If you do a corporation, though, you get double taxed. The corporation gets taxed on income, and then when you get paid as a corporate employee, you get taxed again. But there are other benefits to being a corporation, so you want to look into like a business license for that. Me personally, I just do a limited liability company or an LLC. I think it cost me less than $100 to set up an LLC in Colorado. It'll vary based on where you live. But I would set up a limited liability company. That way, if they try to sue you, you have limited liability, and they can't like take your house and things like that, or assets and things like that. They can only take from the business, not from you personally, even if you're the only employee. So there are legal ramifications. So definitely look into that. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. Um, and so you will need to get some legal counsel on like how to set that up properly. But there are a lot of bits of advice that you can get online about setting up a contractor kind of role. Um, as a freelance developer, it can be a little tricky sometimes to find roles where you can compete because companies want to pay as little as possible. And so they're going to go to like Fiverr and find somebody who's willing to charge like 20 bucks an hour, where you might expect like 50 bucks an hour. By the way, 50 bucks an hour works out to like 100K salary. So take whatever your hourly rate is, roughly multiply it by 2,000. That's roughly going to be the annual salary equivalent. But 100,000 take home as a contractor, you're going to get taxed a lot more depending on the state that you're in, especially if you're in California. I lost about 51% of every dollar I made in California, and most of that was going to state taxes because California hates small business. Um, so you will need to look into that and figure out like how do you save enough money to actually pay your tax bills, things like that. But yeah, being a contractor is a great way to just work on lots of different kinds of projects. Even if it's not something you want to do long term, you just want to be like a contractor to do like occasional side gigs. Totally okay to do that. So I'm just looking at LinkedIn and Facebook real quick to see if there are any comments. Totally okay to do that as a side gig and just let that thing keep running. As a sort of side business. For those that are joining in chat, if you can, so down here under my picture, I've got a username called Ian the Postmanot. If you can go follow that account here on Twitch as well, I would appreciate it. That's my work account. You don't have to come hang out when I stream during the day, but I do like to ask for a few additional followers every week, just so that work sees that I'm gaining an audience there. So if you can go give me a follow on that, I'd appreciate it. GND 404, good to see you in chat as well. Give you some blinky lights. Haven't seen you in a little bit. So GND 404 asks in chat, what tips would you give to someone looking to break into remote dev as someone outside the US? That's a good question. There are some limitations with who US companies can actually work with as employees. So even if you set up like a consultancy business, There may be restrictions on countries that United States-based companies can interact with and do business with. So that will be a consideration based on where you actually live and or where your business is set up and located. So that would be the first thing that I would look into is like, can businesses in the United States do business with a business entity out like within your country, like wherever you are actually located? If so, then you can just say like, hey, I'm an offshore developer. This is my rate. This is the kind of projects I can work on. Here's some samples of my work. Um, and yeah, you can do similar to what I just shared about the advice about how to be a freelancer. And obviously, I can't speak to like taxes and things like that in other countries other than Canada, where I'm from. But I would say you absolutely want to like make sure that you're doing things legally, within your country, setting up like a proper business and that sort of thing. And then once you have that business entity, just do everything as that business. You're not like GND 404, the developer. You're like GND4.com or something, where you're actually being that business and you're interacting from a business to business perspective. Um, and so, again, you will have some advantage being offshore in that your rates may be cheaper than domestic workers here in the United States. um, so it really comes down to how do you show your value? And that's the same kind of advice that you can go back and listen to any of my other videos on the stream about how do you show that value? And that's all the interview prep, right? How do you tell me about yourself? How do you pitch who you are as a developer? How do you pitch the value that you're bringing to my company? And it's the same sort of thing when you're coming in as an outside consultant and you want to work from outside the country. You basically need to show them this is the value that I bring. And that value could be a combination of the skill plus the lower hourly rate that you would charge versus a domestic worker. The problems that you'll run into are getting people to uh, work within your time zone, or they may expect you to work within their time zone. So um, that may be a consideration. Like they'll say, like, yeah, we'll hire you, but you need to work 9 to 5, like Pacific Coast time in California when the rest of our staff is working. And that could be like ridiculous hours for you. Like maybe you're working like midnight to 8 a.m. or something where you live. And so you have to take that kind of stuff into consideration, whether you're willing to do that. And so those will be considerations there. I think the hardest part though is going to be convincing companies within the United States to do business with a business in your country and show that they can follow you, uh, or sorry, not follow you, but that they can trust your work and that if they pay you, you're going to do the job. And so there may be a little bit more proof required as far as the kind of skill that you have and how quickly you can do the work. And so it may not be exactly the same as like a technical interview as if you're going to be an employee. But if you're going to be doing remote work as a consultant, it's generally a little bit easier because consultants they can bring on and they can let go at any time. But if you're trying to join them as a remote employee, that can be a little bit harder because again, some companies can't do business with certain countries, and so that's the primary factor there. Or they may be set up in a way where they can't pay employees within certain countries. And so those will all be considerations that you're gonna have to look into based on where you live. If you want to contact me offline, I can probably give you some more specific advice from there. Got Mike Chen and Emmy B hanging out in chat, following one another around the interwebs. Good to see both of you hanging out. Give you some blinky lights and some applause. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Cool. Let's keep going through chat. I still haven't got to my backlog of questions from Discord, but if you want to hang out with us in Discord, I'll oops, try that again. We'll do a bang Discord. Throw that in there as well if you want to drop by Discord and hang out with us. Um, I've done a couple of resume reviews on Discord. If you want to email me a resume, I'll do those on the stream at some point. I think I'm going to get back to like Sundays being resume review day and Thursday more Q&A and guests and things like that. Cool. Let's see. RC Maniac said in chat, many have said one of the biggest names that people actually know is MKBHD. It's is it Marcus Brownlee or Marcus Brownlee, I think. Tech reviewer. He has videos and commented on don't buy a phone based on the promise of future features. I would not accept a job that says the offer we told you would be getting after 90 days. Yeah. Um, yeah. So RC brings up a good point to what was being asked earlier about like, they want to bring me on, but that first 90 days are going to pay me less. If they're promising that you're going to get a raise in 90 days, you want that in writing. So again, contact me offline. I'll help you word all that stuff and we'll negotiate that with them and we'll go back and forth on it. I'm a little behind on chat, so forgive me to get caught up here. So G&D followed up and said, is freelance the only way to go versus chasing a remote job? You can get a remote job from other countries. What I'm saying is that some companies they won't be able to hire employees in certain countries, depending on the country that you're in, though, and how they're structured as a company. They may be able to just employ anybody anywhere. A lot of bigger companies like they'll set up whatever branch they need, but I think to have employees in some countries, a company has to provide proof of presence in that country, and that's not a United States law. It's a law of the country where you're located. I recall this from like two other places. One where I was a director of engineering, and another one where I was just, it was a startup and we were hiring people around the world. And they said, oh, we can't hire people from that country because we'd actually have to like go set up a physical office and a physical presence just so we can have someone else somewhere else in the country. And so there's a lot more logistics work involved. Bigger companies, they've got the kind of money to do that kind of stuff. Smaller companies, they won't. And so if it's a smaller company, going in as a freelancer will be a lot easier than getting a full-time employee job. Same thing with benefits and things like that. Like they may not be able to do health benefits in your country. They may just increase your pay so that you can pay for your own health benefits. Again, it's going to depend on where you live and things like that. So if you want to contact me offline, I can maybe try to give you more specific advice from there. Excuse me. Dev Crush, good to see you in chat. You sent in 9 applications this week. That's great. A couple per day. Hopefully that works out. Someone said my Discord link is invalid. All right, let me go get a new link for everybody. Copy, paste. Try that one. Oh, and G&D followed up and said, when I said only, is it the only way? I meant more in terms of the odds of being hired. You will have better odds being or getting work from companies if you are a freelance contractor, yes. Because it's a lot easier for them to hire a contractor than it is a full-time employee. If you're a contractor, then it's a business to business relationship, where if you're an employee, it's a business to employee relationship. And like I said, it can be a little trickier as far as like where you're based and if they have to have like a physical presence in the country in order to hire an employee who lives within that country and things like that. Use the link in the about. Okay, I'll have to double check the Bang Discord command. Nikki T, good to see you as well. Hello, hello. Thanks for dropping by, everybody. So yeah, if you've got other questions, drop those in chat. I am going to get to some of these anonymous questions from Discord. This one I've kind of talked about a little bit. I'll give a little bit of preamble. The whole question was a little long, so I'm not going to paste. The whole thing isn't going to fit in this panel underneath me here in Twitch. So I'll verbally read some of the preamble and then we'll get to the questions. So the preamble was, I've been at my current job for about 3 years. I've been recently thinking about either interviewing somewhere else or changing teams internally at my company to maybe get some different experience on a different kind of project. And so their question, let's try that again. Their question, which I have pasted down here, I was wondering who's generally the best person to approach at a company about internal team changes. I've never done it before, so I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts. And basically what I shared with this person offline was you want to start that conversation with your manager and let them know that you're thinking about, you'd like to do something different. Their job as your manager is to make that opportunity happen and to help you figure out who you can talk to see about other possibilities. If a company can retain you and retain your knowledge and what you've learned about the company and how you've contributed to the company, they would prefer to retain you. Leaving the company, though, you're likely to get like a better raise, better title, and explore that other thing. The difference there is if it's a whole new area that you want to get into and you don't have experience in it, it's a lot harder to just leave the company and go find a job doing that thing. Like if I've been working in financial applications and I want to become a mobile game developer, well, there's going to be no opportunity internally within the company, and going to find some new job as a mobile game developer when I have no experience in that is also going to be just as tricky. But if I've been working in financial systems and I want to go work in DevOps instead, transitioning within the company to a DevOps role is probably going to be a lot easier than applying to a new job at a new company and trying to convince them that you can do DevOps work if you don't have the experience. Your current company is probably going to let you sort of split your time. And this is something that I've talked about recently on the stream is like, see if you can go shadow somebody like 1 day a week and then turn it into 2 days a week and then 3 days a week. And then eventually you're just going to like shift over there full time. That way your current team gets to, have you for a little bit of time, and the new team gets to like gradually get to know you and train you, and then there's going to be a tipping point where you're like, okay, now I'm ready to take that other job full time. But I would start that conversation with your manager. If you don't have a good relationship with your manager, then you kind of need to find yourself. You need to find who that other manager would be. So what is that other opportunity that you're looking for within the company? Who would you reach out to within the company? And you may want to talk to HR and say like, hey, you know what, I'm thinking about maybe switching teams at some point. I'd like to look into, this or that kind of opportunity. Do we have anything like that coming up that you know of? Do you know who I would talk to within the company? If the company's small, you'll probably know everybody. If the company's large, you'll probably need to go look at the job board and see like what kinds of jobs are there. But there may be jobs that aren't posted yet. So talking to the HR team would be a good move as well. From there, so if you don't talk to your manager first and you go talk to HR first, that's okay. But then go back and talk to your manager and say, hey, I've been chatting with HR about making a transition to this other team. Can we work out a timeline? And work out that timeline and make that transition. Like I said, a lot of companies are going to be a lot more easygoing about transitioning you into a team and getting you trained up on that because they get to retain you as an employee. They get to retain the other knowledge that you have. If someone on your team runs into a problem, they know they can still Slack you or send you a message and say like, hey, like I'm really stuck on this thing. If you got 5 minutes to help me out, make sure they keep it to 5 minutes though. Don't end up spending hours and hours and hours on it. But I would start that conversation with your manager. If you don't feel like you have a good relationship or a good way to make that happen, then you probably want to interview outside the company. And like I said, interviewing outside the company, you'll generally get a better raise, a better title, and things like that. But if it's a role that you haven't previously done, it's a lot more difficult to convince a company to hire you to do that role. If you don't have experience, you can't prove or demonstrate that skill to them. So if going back to the example, if you've been a developer and you want to get into DevOps and you haven't really done DevOps, then you may want to start working on some stuff on the side. And so it'll still be kind of that same kind of timeline, but you're building up that timeline yourself and you're learning everything on the side. So the downside there is you're using up your off time to go learn those skills. The benefit, though, is once you feel you've got those skills, you can just start interviewing for that job and you go get a better job and hopefully more money. Um, but I would always err on the side of like talk to your manager first and let them know that you're looking for a new opportunity. Go from there. G&D mentioned in chat. I noticed you're not in the dev section. Is that intentional? I've tried doing that on Twitch and setting my channel as software and game development, and I would get 10 to 20 people drop by. I thought I would try the podcast, the talk show podcast thing, just to try it out and see whether that attracts any new people. There's some discoverability on Twitch around like what channel you're in, and I know that there's a way you can kind of change it on the fly. But I wanted to try this out and just kind of see what my viewership is doing and whether more people drop by and stick around, if I get more follows and things like that based on that. And if I don't, I'll switch it back. But yeah, I'm just kind of playing around with things right now. Like I say on the stream a lot, I don't do this to make money, so I'm not I'm not really pressed to like, oh, I need to find the best way to monetize this. It's like, I don't need to monetize this. If you want to buy a mug, you can buy some merchandise. I think I make like $6 if you buy a mug. And I turn around and I donate that money. I'm donating it to a handful of organizations who have diversity in tech as their primary mission and looking at some boot camps and so on. I found two new ones this week that I'm adding to a list. And so I'm kind of compiling a list on my side of code schools that treat diversity as one of their mission goals. And any money that I make on the stream at all is going to be split across those organizations. Um, and I plan to be very transparent with that throughout the year. Like, hey, quarter one, I made this much money. This is who I sent it to. Quarter two, I made this much money. This is who I sent it to. So far, quarter one, I haven't made any money, but that's okay. Well, I've made like $11 on Quora or something like that. So like 2 million views of all my answers on Quora, I made like $11. Uh, so you don't get paid very much, and I don't make anything on YouTube. I don't make anything on Twitch until I hit like 1,000 followers, but that's fine. I've had a couple of subscribers come in from time to time, but again, I'm not doing this with a primary purpose of making money. All of my content on the website is free. The email series is free. All the content there is free. There's no ads because I'm not in this to make money. I'm in this to help people out. So if I can provide perspective and ideas, I'm happy to do that. So yeah, so as far as why I'm not in those dev channels, I'm just kind of tinkering to see how I can gain audience right now. And I thought if I went into like talk shows and podcasts, it might attract people who are looking for just general career advice and not specific to the tech industry. That is my specialty, but I think a lot of the advice that I shared, like last Thursday when we had Chris Perillo on here, and I was going through his LinkedIn profile, like 100% of the advice I was giving him about LinkedIn and resumes are applicable to anybody trying to get a job, anybody trying to attract recruiters on LinkedIn. It's applicable to every kind of industry, not just the tech industry. And I think that's kind of when I realized, like, oh, a lot of my advice is tech centric because that's the industry I know the best. I've been in it for 26 years. But I think I've still got perspectives and stuff that I could share with people that are looking for a job that's not tech. So I'm happy to do that too. Quora has a paid thing now. It's called Quora Plus, and you can basically put some of your content behind a paywall, and so you pay them like $5 a month, and they split it off in like shards of pennies. As you read other people's answers, they give them like a fraction of a penny or something like that. So I'll do one more request for this, and I promise to only beg for this every couple of minutes. But I have this other Twitch account, so if you can give that a follow, Ian the Postmanot. That's my work Twitch account. I would like to see that kind of grow like by 1 or 2 followers a week until I hit 50. Once I hit 50 followers, then I can start uploading videos instead of just recording them. And that way I can kind of keep the content fresh on there. And I may move that stuff over to a YouTube channel. I haven't decided yet. But I haven't figured out whether I want to do that on my own YouTube channel and just say like, hey, this is me going through 30 days of Postman, or if I want to like do that as like an official Postman kind of account. I haven't figured that out yet. I should probably talk to my work about it. All right, well, let me go mark that question as having been answered. And so in the Discord channel, you should be able to view the anonymous questions channel. That's where I'm posting these questions, and when I emoji them with like a thumbs up or something like that, that's basically me saying like I've answered this on the stream. All right, let's do a couple more. Coming up on an hour and a half here, so we'll do a couple more. Should devs be allowed to Google during tech interviews? That's a good question. I have had people ask if they could look up documentation, and I'm generally okay with that. The worst offender I had was when I was working at SendGrid. Um, Someone asked if they could look up some documentation for something. I'm like, yeah, sure, go ahead. I'm just gonna like grab a bottle of water. And I like turned around in my chair, like grab a bottle of water, uncap it, and I got my back to them, and so I'm like taking a drink and staring out the window for a second. And when I turned back around, they were on Stack Overflow looking up the answer to the problem I had given them. And so I called them out, and I'm like, hey, you told me you were going to look up some documentation. And they're like, oh, yeah, I was looking for some documentation. I guess some of the keywords I put in. And I'm like, really? Like, I kind of wanted to say, like, show me the Google search that you did that ended up on Stack Overflow to, like, look up that specific answer. And so I ended the interview. I'm like, I need to know that you can break a problem down and solve the different bits and pieces. And there was enough other things going on within the interview. Love the animations. It's great art better. Um, there was enough other sort of signals that I got in the interview that was like the final thing to like, okay, let's just end the interview. Um, if it was the only thing that they had done wrong, I would have said like, hey, let's throw that question out. I'm going to give you another question, and we'll work with that. Just so that I could again hear them break a problem down. But I think enough time had passed, and they had shown that they weren't really comfortable with the programming language that we were using. I think we were doing PHP at the time. That they had already demonstrated that they weren't doing a really good job with the language and having to look up documentation on like how do I loop over an array or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, all right, look up documentation if you want. I'm going to grab some water. Otherwise, I would be certainly paying attention to what they're doing on the screen. When I turn back around, they're on Stack Overflow. Like that's not okay. Like yes, we're going to look that stuff up on the job, but on remote interviews, like especially if I can't see your screen, like mock interviews that I do on interviewing.io, people ask like, hey, can I look up the documentation? I usually say, like, yeah, you can look up the documentation, but I want you to verbalize what you're doing. I want you to tell me what you're typing in the Google search. Tell me how you're evaluating like the links that you're seeing, what you're clicking on, and then talk me through like what you're seeing on that page. Because again, I think that that's part of the process of understanding you as a developer. Like, show me what that process is. Do you have a process? How do you evaluate those search results to know what you want to click on? Like, I think this is the link that's going to give me what I need. Other times, if someone says like, "Hey, I'm stuck on how to iterate over this list in Python, can I go look up the documentation?" I'll just say, "Just tell me what you want to do, and I'll give you the syntax. We'll just save some time." And I'll like step in and I'll write the code for them at that point. So some interviewers are willing to help out. Some interviewers are going to be okay with you Googling answers. Well, not answers, but documentation. Um, but I think a lot of interviewers want to be careful like what you're actually searching for online, that you're not trying to look up the answer to the problem. They want to know that you're actually looking up documentation, for how to do like a like dot items or something in a Python list. So RC Maniac says in chat, my coworker at the last company asked the dev to show their screen and they did, but they didn't realize they had shown the screen, the whole screen, not just a window. So my coworker saw the second window got opened where every question was searched in Google and code was copied from Stack Overflow and the other sites into the Google Doc that was being shared. I mean, a lot of reason why companies use tools like Google Docs is because they can tell you're just like pasting it all in one shot, as opposed to like writing out the code like character by character. Um, so that's you know that's obviously pretty interesting. I've also been part of interviews where when they share their whole desktop, you see stuff on their desktop and you see folders in the background of like, I wish I hadn't seen that. I won't elaborate, but let's just see. I've seen some things that I wish I hadn't seen on people's like desktop background images and names of folders containing things that are not safe for work. I'll leave it at that. I do try to stay PG-13 on the channel. Yeah, oh my, exactly. That actually happened at a kids coding thing that I did too. We had an organization come in uh, that was doing like mentorship to kids, and so they brought a bunch of adults and kids. And one of the adults brought their own laptop, and the kid was having problems with theirs, and so the adult let them use their laptop, and they had a lot of not safe for work things and not safe for children things on the laptop. And I like immediately went over to the organizer. I'm like, you need to shut that guy down. You need to take his laptop away. He should not be working with children. And she's like, why? What happened? And I'm like, I'll tell you later. Um, and so I'm like, there's like not safe for children material like readily available to the child on the laptop. Like they could literally click on a video on the background and like corrupt their little mind. And so they kicked the guy out of the organization and whatever. Yeah, it was this big hoopla. But yeah, seen some things. Yeah, at a kids program. Like, why would you bring that trash to a kids program and let a kid use your laptop and you get that trash on there? Mm. If that's your thing, that's your thing. Fine, whatever. But not around kids. Come on. Anyway, on to happier things. All right, next interview or next question that we got from Chad. I've been called for a second interview after clearing my first technical interview. What questions can I expect at the second stage? So this one was worded a little funny, so apologies for the language on this one. But basically, he said I got called for a second interview. So I finished the first technical phase. I got called for a second one. What kind of questions could I expect? It'll depend on the questions that you got asked in the first one and what sorts of interview process you've gone through. A typical process is you're going to get reached out to by a recruiter. They'll probably do some basic screening kind of questions and then hand you off to like a hiring manager. That hiring manager is going to do a technical phone screen. Any stage after that is basically going to be technical assessment and skill demonstration. That's really what those are going to come down to. So it could be live coding. It could just be more technical discussion. It could be things like system design. There are a lot of avenues, a lot of different ways that, a lot of different directions, I guess we could say, that those will go. So it depends a lot on the questions that you've already been asked in the process as you go. But those are generally the stages. You're gonna have like a recruiter screen, a hiring manager screen, and then one or more technical screens. Hopefully not a ton of them. I recently was reading on Twitter, I think, about someone that went through like 15 interviews at Google and then got rejected. They were told like, yeah, everything did great. You passed everything. We're just doing like the team assignment. And then like two teams came back and said no. And so they rejected the candidate. 15 interviews to get a no. It's like they should say, okay, well, those two teams are out. Let's go continue to find other teams instead of just telling the candidate, like, sorry, you don't get a job at Google. They passed all of the technical requirements. It's just the two teams that they had isolated for that candidate, both of them said no for whatever reason. And so the person didn't get a job after 15 interviews. Like that's harsh. So every company is going to be a little different as far as the number of steps that they have to go through or that you're going to have to go through. There will be varying levels of complexity, various levels of um, combinations of like actually demonstrating your skill, like writing code or working on a database or DevOps or whatever the role is entailing. They're going to need you to demonstrate that skill to some degree. In developer relations, the kind of work that I do, I've had to do like presentations and live talks and little like mini webinars and things like that, which for me are a lot of fun. So I don't mind putting that stuff together. The same as if I was going for a full-time coding role. It's like, yeah, you need me to demonstrate my skill. I get it. I'll do it. I hate that it's leak code, but I'll do it. But that's just me. So every company is going to be a little different as far as like what that is. So I can't give like a blanket answer like, oh, your second interview, you're absolutely going to be asked the following things. It'll also depend what kind of development you do. If you're a systems developer, you're going to get different questions than a web developer. If you're a front end developer, you're going to get different kinds of questions than a back end developer. So I can't unfortunately give like a one answer fits all to this question. I would say, if you want more feedback, you can contact me offline. So again, this question came in anonymously, so I can't say like, hey, RC Maniac, thanks for the question. You can contact me offline and ask for more detail. So when people ask anonymously, I put it in the Discord channel and I don't attach their name. And then when I get back around to it, I don't remember who it was that asked this question in the first place. So if this was your question, you're welcome to reach out to me. I'll drop my LinkedIn in here again so you can kind of see it over here in the panel in the video. But you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's the same username that I use on Twitch and Twitter, and I've got Linktree now. If you want to go look at some links, they're all just linking back to Discord and things like that. But yeah, reach out to me privately, and I'm happy to give you more individual help on that. I thought this question was interesting because I've got very relatable, very recent experience to chat about this. How do software engineers go about lining up their interviews once they're satisfied with their preparation? This is a really good question. So this was a topic that we kind of covered with Jen Batara, also known as Jen Develops here on Twitch. I'll throw that in chat here. So we had Jen on the stream, I think in August or September, I forget. August, September, October, somewhere in that timeline, um, to talk about her journey through code school and then like interviewing. I think Jen interviewed at 15 companies and got 7 job offers, which is a fantastic ratio. And I wanted Jen on the stream specifically to hear like how did you juggle that, because she was working full time and juggled that many interviews and handled that many offers and then like settled on an offer. It was a pretty great interview. You can go check out the YouTube channel and go watch that. The the tips that Jen shared were basically like, yeah, I just interviewed during the day and I got caught up on work in the evening, which not everybody has the time and privilege for, but some do. For me, I was unemployed, so I had all kinds of time to juggle these kinds of things. If you were working full time, it can be really tricky and really daunting to figure out how do I interview with a number of companies in a short amount of time so that I can like juggle everything, get a whole bunch of offers where it's not like I get an offer one week and then I got to wait 2 more weeks to get another offer. Meanwhile, that other one expired. And it's like, when do I decide enough is enough and I just take an offer when I may have other future interviews coming up? And those are kind of gambles that we take anyway. Like even once I wrapped up, so I applied to a whole bunch of places, including Microsoft back in December, and I got ghosted. Never heard back from Microsoft until a week into my job at Postman. And they're like, hey, we got your application and we're not going to move forward. I'm like, don't care. Like, I never heard from you back in like November, December when I applied. Like, why are you reaching out months later to tell me I'm not qualified? Like, I don't care about your job anymore. I'm already employed. Um, every company's timeline is a little bit different. And if they wanted to interview me, I would have interviewed with Microsoft because it was also a dev role position. But I'm also not going to leave Postman now. I freaking love Postman. And so once you decide that your preparation is done, the first thing I would do is figure out how you want to do your interviewing. Do you want to do your interviews where it's like, I'm going to interview in the mornings and I'm going to work in the afternoon and the evenings, and I'm just going to tell my boss that I need to like shift my hours for a little while? You don't have to tell them why. You can just say like, hey, I'm going to like shift my hours instead of like starting at 9, I'm going to start at 10 if that's cool. It depends on where the companies are located, where you're going to be interviewing and what time. If you're working from home and it's not going to conflict with other work meetings, like, is anybody really going to know that you're doing like an interview on the side? The only problem there is if like work says, hey, we need to have a meeting or can we have a chat about this thing, and you've got an interview scheduled. Then you'll need to figure out some kind of excuse like, oh, I got to run an errand real quick. Can I get back to you in an hour or so when I get back? You're gonna have to work that kind of stuff out. If you're not employed, then your full-time job is getting a job. And so you can schedule these as full as you want. I will caution you from experience, don't try to do too many interviews on the same day. I dropped the ball on that and I lost a job because of it. I was hoping to get a job at Twilio and I messed up their interview process because I was doing too many things, trying to juggle too many things on the same day. I had a follow-up interview with Amazon and an interview with New Relic and an interview with Twilio all in the same day. And I messed up the Twilio one. And so they came back and said, no job. And I was really disappointed. And I knew that it was my fault. I was the only one to blame. So don't try to do too many interviews with different companies on the same day. So having learned that lesson throughout the rest of December, January was really my full-time effort to get the job. I didn't do more than 2 companies per day. So I applied total between like November and early January when I was going through the application phase. I applied at 30 companies. Once I started interviewing, I didn't interview with more than 2 companies per day. It was too much to juggle. And even that was a lot. Like by the end of it, I think I had like uh, more than a dozen like active interviews like or more than a dozen active companies that I was interviewing with, like juggling and trying to figure out like, oh, I can't do the interview on that time at that day because I got another interview. Can we do it at this time instead? So it was a full-time job just juggling that kind of stuff. But it is important that you find a way that's going to make that work. Um, so the first thing is to figure out like if you're already working, how can you do that around your other work responsibilities and team meetings and things like that? Because you don't want to lose your job while you're trying to find a new job. If you're not employed, then your full-time job is getting that new job. And so spend as much time as you need and figure out what kind of schedule is going to work for you. Don't be too ambitious though. Don't try to take on too much. Uh, Lumashi, not sure how to pronounce your username, but welcome to the chat for the first time. They say, I'm mid-level. I'm great at executing individual tasks. How do I level up to senior or better? It's a great question. For me, an intermediate level dev is really good at taking on tasks and building code. A senior level dev is going to be really good at also providing mentorship to those under them. And so as a hiring manager, when I bring on a senior dev, my expectation for them is, hey, take this code, make it better, make it do more with the same resources or less. Figure out some way of making it more efficient, more optimized in some way, how to do other things, or convert it from a non-compiled language into a compiled language so it'll execute faster and use up way less resources. Something along those lines. That's going to be one of my primary tasks for a senior level dev. Then as a senior level dev, I'm going to say, hey, while you're optimizing that code, like let's say we've got a piece of code that a junior or intermediate wrote in Python. I'm going to give that code to my senior dev and say, hey, go grab that junior or intermediate dev, have them sit down with you and show them how you are optimizing your code and why you're optimizing it in a particular way. Share that knowledge because you're going to level them up alongside of you. You're going to make the code better, but you're going to make them better. So those are my expectations for a senior dev. Every company is, again, a little bit different. Those would be the two main things that I would consider for leveling up as like from an intermediate to a senior level dev is how are you optimizing code? How are you making code better? How are you taking on more responsibility as far as like kind of leading a team, not as like an official lead capacity, but if you're going to be a senior dev, you're going to be looked at as a leader on the team, not as a lead, but a leader where other people are going to follow you. You're going to say, okay, let's huddle up, let's get together as a team, let's figure out like, let's break this part down, blah, blah, blah. And you're going to be setting the example for a lot of the work that happens. And then from there, how do you make code better? And then how do you mentor other people around you? So I know there's a really fast kind of explanation, but those would be the things that I would think about as far as leveling up from intermediate to senior. There are some really good guides. There's one that I've shared on the stream before, careerladders.dev. I'll drop that in chat. Um, they've actually got, so on that opening page, you can go into like an engineering portion of the site, and it'll break down like, junior level dev, although they call it like engineer one, engineer two, senior engineer. But you can kind of look at those. And those are, again, they're going to be kind of high level explanations and descriptions of like, these are approximately the responsibilities that you're going to have at that level. So you could take a look at that and say, yeah, I already kind of do some of this stuff. Some of this other stuff I don't do yet. Then I would say your first course of action is go talk to your manager and say, hey, within a year, I want to level up to senior level. This is what I'm already doing. These are tasks that I think I could also be doing. Does this sound okay to you? Can I start taking on these responsibilities to work towards that? A lot of companies want to see you do the role before giving you that role. And if you do the role as an intermediate, then you can turn around and use that on a resume if you're going to go apply at some other job. And you can say, hey, as an intermediate, I was already doing senior level work in these areas. And this is the value that I bring to your team. And go level up by changing the company. Again, as I mentioned earlier on the stream, companies would much prefer to retain you if possible. And so if they can provide some kind of training, some kind of support, shadowing, whatever that may be, they're going to be more willing to put that effort in to keep you as an employee so they don't have to turn around and hire somebody to fill your position. So as much as possible, they're going to want to try to keep you. But really, at the end of the day, that's your choice, whether you stay at the company or leave. If you, again, kind of playing back on a question that I answered earlier on the stream, if you're going to leave the company, it can be a little more challenging to convince another company that you can do the job when you don't have that experience on your resume. But if you can hear from your company, like these are the responsibilities you would take on as a senior dev, go see if you can find like an old job description uh, for a senior level role within your team, within the company, and then say, hey, based on what I do and based on this job description, these are things that I should be doing in order to be a senior dev. Go talk to your manager about that. There was another question on the stream earlier, like, what do I bring up in a one-on-one? Go bring up that stuff. Go take that list to your next one-on-one with your manager and say, hey, these are things that I see that are going to be required for a senior level developer position. How can I start doing these? And let them know that that's your intention. Be not aggressive about it, but you want to be really forthcoming about it and say, this is my plan. This is what I want to do. My timeline is a year. What do you think? And get their opinion and go from there. Thanks for dropping by chat. I think that's a great question to ask. Thank you for asking that. Um, Heartbender mentioned in chat, I agree. Having to maintain too many things going on. The hard part for me is getting the timing right with these different positions and going through the process. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And for me, like once I started getting the offers, I'm like, oh shoot, like I really kind of want these other jobs. Like, how do I hurry them up? And one of them being postman. I'm like, I really want that job at postman. I don't want to let that one go. How long can I stretch out these other interviews? Sorry, I think I'm getting a little bit of lag here. How long can I stretch out these other interviews so that I don't lose that opportunity? And that can definitely be a little bit tricky for sure. Did I just lose my internet connection? OBS is dropping tons of frames over here. There we go. Am I back? I think I had a little bit of lag there, so I should be back. So I kind of paused my answer there because I started seeing I was dropping a lot of content here. RC Maniac says, Twitch, stop buffering Ian. I'm trying to listen here. Yeah, me too. Um, Sorry, my internet's lagging a little bit. I'll see if I can improve that later tonight. Um, yeah, trying to juggle, like now that I started getting offers, I'm like, how do I not lose out on the offers for the companies that I actually really want? How do I hurry them up? How do I keep them interested? That's a really important part of juggling this kind of stuff. And that's where you have to get more aggressive the farther in the process you get. So as you start getting those offers, you want to um, you want to start being more aggressive with other companies and say, hey, like we need to start making this happen. Um, and say like, I've got offers. I would really rather work at your company. I'm going to ask for extensions on these offers, but I would really rather be working for you. What can we do? I think for the sake of my bandwidth, I'm going to stop streaming on Facebook and LinkedIn. So if you're on Facebook and LinkedIn and you've watched this far, come over to Twitch. I will drop that link on those platforms. Come hang out at Twitch. Twitch.tv/736. So I'm just going to paste these links on LinkedIn and Facebook, and I'm going to stop streaming to those platforms. Hopefully this will help on the bandwidth side. Bandwidth is picking up and shrinking. Hopefully this will be better. All right, we'll see how this goes. Yeah, I appreciate everybody DMing me saying, hey, this isn't working. Yeah, it's probably my bandwidth. So I'm trying to shut down LinkedIn and Facebook so that I'm only streaming on Twitch. That will hopefully make it better. We'll see how it goes for the next couple of minutes. But I will shut those down. Still, it's only kind of lagging now. Okay, I guess it's better. Cool. Let me know if that gets any better for any of you. Maybe get a refresh or something. Um, I refreshed it in an anonymous tab for me, and it shows an ad. Not supposed to see ads on my channel. I'm not sure why ads are coming up, but we'll see if this is going to get a little bit better. I'm going to try streaming to one platform for the rest of the night. So I'll stick around for a little bit, but I'm going to stream to one platform and see if that makes it better for a little bit. I see my bandwidth is getting a little better, but it's not quite where I want it to be. So we'll play it by ear a little bit. But yeah, I was dropping lots of frames here on my side. So it was me. It's not Twitch, it's me. So hopefully this will get a little bit better. 3 minutes between posting a comment and seeing my response. Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, I would say like once I started getting those offers, I had to be a little more aggressive with the companies. So let me just drop this in chat. So worst case, catch the catch the recap on YouTube later. I'll post the video there later tonight. Oh, someone's saying that even the ads are buffering. So maybe it is Twitch. Because my bitrate, my outgoing bitrate is like really high right now, going out to Twitch. So maybe it's Twitch that's lagging. I don't know. But yeah, hopefully, like worst case, you can catch this on YouTube later on. Okay, you have buffer now, so things are happening. All right, cool. Well, hopefully that'll be better. I have it in an incognito window, and I see the video like kind of stuttery, kind of laggy. So hopefully the audio is coming through okay. I'm gonna be quiet on my mic and see if I can catch up on some audio here. All right, we'll see how this goes. No, the audio is coming through okay. So yeah, there's definitely some lag for sure. Apologies for that. I'll see what I can do. Although I'm not sure that there's much that I can do at this point. Someone who works for an internet streaming platform, it's interesting that Twitch decided to do source streaming. Is that it takes a streamer's video, straight rebroadcasts it. It's less compute and storage, but it produces a vastly worse watching experience. Yeah. And for me, I'm trying to take my raw stream and broadcast to 3 platforms at the same time. I may stop doing LinkedIn and Facebook, to be honest. I don't get a whole lot of engagement. I've started getting a tiny bit of engagement on LinkedIn a little bit after the fact. I get a couple of views on LinkedIn, but most of my views come from Twitch and YouTube, and most of those are on YouTube after the fact. So again, that's why I was asking for help. Like if anybody's got time to volunteer to like help me with time codes on YouTube videos, I would greatly appreciate it. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. I'm still pretty far behind. Yeah. Not sure I can do much about that. I think Twitch is buffered at this point. I mean, aside from like stopping streaming and starting it over again, I don't know that there's much else I could do on that. So I'm just going to keep going. And worst case, like I'm recording locally, so worst case, this will be up on YouTube later on. So I'm just gonna keep going on it. Although I still see them dropping frames here. I wonder if I can stop sharing. Let's close a few things here. Let's see if I can make some of this better. I do have an enormous amount of Chrome window tabs open all over the interwebs, which I'm sure doesn't help things. I don't know whether closing too many of those is going to help. I'll see what I can do later on. Like I see my outgoing bit rate anywhere from 10 megabit down to like 0. So I'm pretty sure it's my system. But I'm going to keep recording here locally, and then I'll just push this up to YouTube later on. Cool. Well, apologies to anybody that's dealing with a lag. Um, but hopefully that last answer was helpful for Lumashi. Not sure how to pronounce your username. Hopefully that's right, Lumashi. Um, they were asking like, so it's really just mentorship. It's not just mentorship. Like it's also knowing like what's expected of being a senior level dev, and it's about leveling up code, not just the people around you. It's also about leveling up the code and leveling up the team and things like that. So I would say it's something definitely to talk to your management about and see how they can direct you on that. Then they followed up, said, time for a somewhat relevant question. During these times of work from home, what are your thoughts on internet redundancy? It's a very timely question considering what I'm going through right now. Um, Internet redundancy, I mean, I would say if your role is like super, super critical to where you have to be online 100% of the time in order to do your job, having a redundant internet feed could be really helpful. Like if you're live streaming as part of your job, that could be a really important thing. Yeah, I can't really advise one way or the other because it depends a lot on your job. Um, you refreshed and got an ad, and the ad is lagging. Yeah, I think it's Twitch. I'm wondering if my bitrate to Twitch is low because Twitch is having problems. Anyway, um, but yeah. So hopefully, Limashi, you can catch this answer later on YouTube. I would say, as far as like working from home, the importance of redundant internet is going to be proportional to the importance of your role. If you've got a role where you need to be online all the time, then yeah, get a second internet connection. Um, like if I really had to, I could tether off my phone, but I would have to move upstairs in my house because I'm in my basement and I literally have no signal on my phone down here. And so tethering off my phone is a hotspot. I have unlimited tethering, but tethering off my phone isn't going to do me any good if I don't get any signal. Like literally behind this black curtain you see on the side of my screen here is a window, but it's like a one of those window wells, and so there's like a 5 foot clearance to get past a bunch of concrete to even see sky. And so it would be tricky for me to even like put my phone on that windowsill to try to get a little bit of signal. So for me, it wouldn't be practical. And I've only got one. Well, could potentially get a different internet provider at my house. Um, but yeah, it would definitely be a tricky thing to do. Um, yeah, I think given the lag and everything going on tonight, I think I'm gonna wrap up and see Chris is streaming. Let's see who else is streaming. Go see if I can find someone else to go raid. I think we'll just wrap it up for the night. Um, let's see who else is online. Just seeing who else happens to be online that we can go raid or something and just call it a night at this point. Um, I don't think there's much else I can do. Meanwhile, Chris Perillo, my own company service, streaming no issue. It's Twitch trying to do a pass through. Well, Chris streams directly to Twitch though, so I'm not sure why. Anyway, yeah, I'm just gonna wrap up here. I'll wrap up for the night, and yeah, thanks for dropping by for those that came by. Appreciate that. Appreciate the follows. Appreciate the subscribers. Again, I don't do this to make money, so any money I make is going to be transparent, and I'm going to like post that up on the website so you can see how money coming in is like money going out. I've had a few people contribute through the buy me a coffee link on the website, and I appreciate those. But I'm actually, for my goal for 2022 is to give all that money away. So I appreciate any income that comes through that. All my resume reviews this year are going to be free as well. So I've had a couple people reach out about paid resume reviews. I'm actually going to make them free for the year. I just want to contribute back to the community. So So yeah, I appreciate that. If you're watching this on YouTube later on, please like and subscribe. I'm not very good at marketing. I joke about it, but I'm not good at marketing. Like I send out a tweet going, "Yeah, I'm going live." Like right now, I'm not good at like setting these things up ahead of time. Um, so I'm gonna rely on all of you folks to like spread the word, let people know that I'm here. I'm here every Thursday, every Sunday. I may do the occasional Twitter space just to see how that goes. Because I figured out how to use like the good microphone as long as I have an internet connection and bandwidth. Although I think, I mean, my bandwidth just turned green over here for Twitch, so maybe it's going to be okay. I don't know. We'll try refreshing some windows and see if that's any better. See if anybody's still around. A handful of folks are still hanging out. Yeah, looks like I'm back. A handful of folks are still hanging out. Now I can quote John Wick. I think I'm back. I'm thinking I'm back. Whatever that quote is. Um, Wait, what did I do? I did nothing. I literally did nothing on my side. I've been sitting here chatting the whole time. I've literally done nothing whatsoever. I've been just answering questions and saying, maybe I'll wrap up for the night. And then like suddenly everything went green in OBS and I hit refresh in my anonymous browser and it's like it's fine now. So yeah, chat is nice and fast. Yeah, I don't know. I literally did nothing on my side. Nothing. So it must have been Twitch. Must have been Twitch having a problem with it. But I was wrapping up, and I was saying like, hey, thanks if you're watching this on YouTube later. Like, please like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I am gonna wrap up for the night because I've been going for almost 2 hours. Um, so yeah, sorry for the hiccup. Pretty sure it's Twitch. I do need to debug that audio problem, so I'm gonna stop the stream and I'm gonna come back. Um, Actually, RC Maniac said in chat, Microsoft did something similar. I applied to Google, Microsoft, Citrix, etc. Um, got past all the interviews at Google, got rejected by the board that determines budgets. Interesting. Microsoft ghosted. 12 months later, I get an email from Microsoft saying, yeah. I mean, at least they waited a year. And they're like, hey, you got a year there. It's not like they contacted you like a month into your employment going, hey, you still want to interview? So yeah, it is interesting to get those emails after the fact. But yeah, not very helpful in the moment when you're like hoping to interview with them to get that job in the first place. But in the meantime, I'm glad you found that other job. So cool. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap up. Any suggestions for a raid? I know Chris is streaming right now, but we kind of raid Chris a lot. None of the other people actually take that back. Let me double check who I follow because my anonymous login isn't showing anybody. The other people actually take that back. Double check that. Let's see who else is on here. Let's see. We got 3D printing, music, 3D printing, Chris. So yeah, if anybody's got a recommendation, drop it in chat. Let me know. Let me know if you've got like a favorite person that you'd like to go raid, and we'll go raid them. By the way, if anybody knows the guy that runs 100 devs, convince him to come raid us sometimes. He gets like 4,000 people. I'll get like that next stage of Twitch in no time at all. Um, I would love to. I'd love to get like a massive raid sometime. In the meantime, we got like half a dozen or so people still hanging out here. So if anybody has suggestions on who we can go raid, drop that in chat for me. Um, Seeing who else is on here. Got some recommendations. Software, game. Any preference for type? I mean, I prefer like diversity in tech and somebody who's doing some kind of coding, not necessarily like music. I mean, I follow like music on Twitch because I'll put that on like later at night and I'll just have the music going in the background or something like that. Um, but yeah, prefer something that's kind of along the lines of, you know, some sort of tech, preferably diverse, not like another white dude in tech. Mm, You don't follow any tech or code? I mean, I kind of want to raid somebody. If you want science, there's Freck-led science. Don't know them. Let's go see what they do. Oops, did I spell it wrong? Or did you spell it wrong? Freckled science with a K instead of an H. Oh, Freckled science. Yeah, I have seen their stream before. Yeah, let's go raid them. Cool. All right. Well, we'll go raid. Make some noise in their raid channel when we get there. And if you have your Prime subscription available, go subscribe to their channel. I love seeing diversity in tech and STEM and things like that. So let's go see what they're up to, and we'll catch you all on Sunday. Cheers.